Hello, you wonderful people. So for today's video, I'm going to talk about some news that came out fairly recently at the time of me recording. It probably came out a couple of days ago. Apparently, the CW is developing a live-action Powerpuff Girls show, which I was like, holy crap, that immediately piqued my interest. I've heard a few people here and there like, no, don't do it. Why would you do that? I'm honestly in that camp of, do it. I'm really interested. I'm actually all in for this. I think, stemming from, obviously the nostalgia aspect of it for me, because obviously when I was a kid, I grew up watching Powerpuff Girls, but also at the same time, like obviously because I remember watching some episodes when I was older because it's syndicated on Cartoon Network and Boomerang. I never saw, I think that I was reading articles saying it was 2016. I saw bits and pieces of the reboot. I saw mainly promotional stuff, but I've seen bits and pieces of an episode, but obviously I have a much clearer picture in my head when I think of the original show compared to obviously the reboot. But regardless, if you are curious, there are some details out about it, and I thought it was actually kind of fascinating. So basically, they're approaching it like the Powerpuff Girls are in their 20s, and they basically lament about the fact of the matter is so much of their childhood involved crime fighting, so they never really had a childhood, which I think is so interesting. So it's a reboot. I mean, obviously, it's like, it's almost like a reboot, but it's also like a continuation reboot, because it's like, this is the Powerpuff Girls, like when in their 20s after doing, like, it's basically like if the Powerpuff Girls series happened when they were kids, because obviously like they're little kids when during the Powerpuff Girls show. I don't know if they ever express like when they are, like, but it's definitely like they're like in elementary school, but they look like little kids. So I don't know if it's ever explained what grade system they're in, but definitely them being in their 20s and kind of lamenting about it. I think that's such an interesting premise. Just because it immediately makes me think like, okay, so we could go at this a way of like, obviously making it so like the Powerpuff Girls happened as, to them when they were kids. And so it can make it a situation of like people come up to them and be like, holy crap, aren't you Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup? Aren't you guys like the Powerpuff Girls? It's like, yeah, that was like years ago, guys. Like they probably like left it behind. Because let's not forget, as the Powerpuff Girls, they didn't wear masks. They were just out and about. Like everyone knew that they were the Powerpuff Girls. It was a thing new in the town. So I'm like, how does that go like in this universe? Because it's like, I mean, I'm curious like how they would kind of approach that, where it's just kind of like they're almost like retired heroes, where it's just like, yeah, we don't do that anymore, or would it, I mean, does it still come up from time to time where they're like do people look at them and it's like, hey, Blossom, Bubbles, Buttercup, aren't you gonna do something? Someone's robbing a bit. We're not doing that anymore. Or like, maybe it's because they are older, people don't really recognize. I mean, obviously it's a CW, so maybe they could do like a teen, like a drama, like, them trying to have a normal life, and it's like someone dating them like, oh my God, you're Buttercup from, yes, the Powerpuff Girls, yeah, that was years ago. Like maybe they try to hide that, like maybe they're not in the same town that, because I forgot the name of the town, it's been so long, but maybe they don't live in the same town anymore. Maybe they do. I'm curious. I mean, maybe they won't even go about it the same way by being acknowledged. Because I'm curious, like, would they acknowledge like the Powerpuff Girls cartoon from the 90s being like, yeah, that did happen in its canon, or would they kind of warp the history of it being like, because someone had pointed out the fact of the matter is, it's like, oh, they had a great childhood. They were able to be superheroes and go to school. To be fair, they were young kids at the time, so they probably, I mean, obviously from what I remember, there were obviously some issues there, but obviously this is them older, so like, it probably became more and more of an issue as they got older. But even if you didn't really go with that, even if you're just kind of doing your own take on the Powerpuff Girls, making it like, oh yeah, like they kind of didn't really have much of a childhood, it also makes you wonder what kind of perspective they'll have with like the professor. Like obviously he made them. I mean, would you stay true to that? Like, I mean, they might even make jokes about it. Like, what, you think we were made with sugar, spice, and everything nice? Like they might make like, fourth wall breaking jokes like that because they weren't made like that. I mean, who knows? They could remix it so it's like the Powerpuff Girls weren't made. Maybe they were just born with powers, but like people think they were experiments. Like they could play into that, making me like, oh, you think I mean, they might even do like a thing, because I know like Spider-Man stuff has definitely done this, especially the PS4 Spider-Man, make it like there's merchandise. So they have to walk around and like, there's cartoons and like merchandise based on us, and we don't see any of that money. Like it could be like, there's so much they could do with that. So like I said, I'm really there for it, because I feel like tone wise you could go like a little Riverdale-ish, because that's what comes in my mind. I'm like, Riverdale meets like, the Arrowverse superhero shows, so like Arrow, Flash, Legends, so on and so forth, like along those same lines. I think that'd be kind of interesting. I mean, you might even like, I think probably a good comparison would be like Supergirl. Like Riverdale meets Supergirl would probably be a good combination for that. It also begs the question, like, would you see like recurring characters like Princess, I think it was her name, the Amoeba Gang. Like, what would you do about that? Like, because they were literally amoeba. Like, what would you do? Like, you know, Mojo Jojo, how would you handle that? Would that be like a Gorilla Grodd situation? Like, you know, I mean, would they even tackle that? Would it just be like we were superheroes and they ignored the other, like, crazy science fictional, just out there aspects of it? Because you have characters like him. It's like, what would you do with that live action wise? Would you translate that the same way? Would you do it differently? Because that was like from the 90s, so would you do something different when it came to that character? Like, there's a lot of questions I would have about that, you know? Is the mayor's ticket still around and kicking? I forgot about like his secretary, or like who works under him, like, cause you never saw her face. You'd always see like the back of her, but anytime it came to like her head, you'd see like her neck down, you know? It was Miss something, and I'm include an annotation of it, but I can't remember it off the top of my head right now. Like I said, I'm actually here for this because I think that's such an interesting approach to the Powerpuff Girls. I'd kind of be there for it, but I know, like I said, I've heard some people who have reservations, like, no, don't do it. I'm like, nah, do it. That'd be sick. I would just love to see the approach that someone would take behind, because I think I'm not typically one of those people that pays too much attention to like who's behind the show. Like, if I see a familiar name or something, I'm like, oh, that's cool, because I know one of the people behind it is Diablo Cody, which obviously she did Juno, because that's the first thing to come to mind. There was some other stuff they had listed that she did. I was like, oh, I didn't know she was behind that. I don't remember what it was, but I think also like Greg Berlanti's kind of connected to it, because it's, you know, so that's, I mean, regardless of it, it's just like that, it all interests me so much, because I'm like, holy, not even just like from a nostalgia I mean, yes, a combination of a nostalgia standpoint, but also just kind of like, how would you approach that? Like I said, there's like so many different ways to approach that I think would be pretty dope. My question to you is ultimately, how do you feel about this? Are you excited like me about a potential live action Powerpuff Girls, especially with them going in that direction? Because like I said, it's not like it's just a pure adaptation of like, oh, them as little kids being the Powerpuff Girls. Like I said, this is them in their 20s. Do you like that approach? Are you like other people who are like, no, don't do this. I don't care if it's them in their 20s. Like, you know, because obviously some of the stuff I've listed, whether it be Riverdale or some of the other CW TV shows, or like, you know, superhero shows, like maybe you're not into those, so you feel like it's going to be kind of like that tone-wise and feel-wise, and you're not for it. Like, obviously I'm kind of a CW stan, I'll admit it, so I'm kind of down for anything CW-wise, so I'm just kind of like, give it to me, especially this, because like I said, it just sounds so interesting. I'd love to get to know your thoughts in the comments down below. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.